Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. Free for all Friday. Fire Hose Friday. Going to deliver as much content as I can squeeze in. Let's begin this second hour very quickly by grabbing a phone call from Bill, who called, been waiting patiently. Bill, thanks for calling. Thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, how you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Great. Listen, we can have all these conversations about what is going on in our country and in the world today. But when we boil it all the way down, Brian, we're not going to be able to overcome this through ourselves. We're going to have to beg for mercy from the Lord that He will intervene for us, and that when we become obedient to what He says in His Word, and He says, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. You know, we're going to have days where we're going to see all things come against us. But He said that you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome this world. And the only way we're going to be able to overcome this is to be faithful and be content for the faith and do exactly what He says. He told us to sow the word of faith in the labor of others and reap with joy. We've got to pray for our enemies, because if you can't win your enemy over, where is your reward? So you probably could say this a lot better than me, Brian, but I want to thank AFA for continuing for the faith. We just need to pray for one another.
Absolutely, Bill. Well, listen, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a great word. And, Debbie, my wife made a post on her personal Facebook page today. I shared some of it with our staff in AFA Devotions this morning. But it relates to what you were just saying, Bill, about the importance of prayer. Now, Debbie's been reading through the book of Romans, which is where I've been in my reading. You know, and she was reading through the end of Romans 1. I mean, that litany of sins and tawdry, shameful behavior, sexual sins and sins of the mind and narcissism and self-centeredness and lack of compassion and no pity. I mean, it's just a dismal list of what happens when people's minds become depraved because they have rejected God. And she found herself, as she was reading the end of Romans 1, getting more and more discouraged about the condition of our government. She writes the condition of our nation and the condition of its people. And she said this is an accurate statement. This is what she writes on her Facebook page. We are in a horrible and perpetual downward spiral, and it seems as if there is no hope to stop it. And she gets to verse 32, which just kind of cemented the whole thing. It seems like there's no way to stop it. This is what Romans 1:32 says after this litany of this disastrous social chaos and sin. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. So that's kind of a bleak ending to that chapter. But then she picked up one of her prayer cards. She has a stack of cards that have prayers on them or important Bible verses. And here's the one she picked up. This comes from Luke 18. This is Jesus talking to his disciples. And remember, this is the story of the persistent widow. I mean, this is the widow that goes to the judge. He's an unrighteous judge. He doesn't care about God, has no compassion for people. She's a widow. She has no pull. She has no power. She can't hire a high-priced lawyer. She can't promise a donation to the judge's reelection campaign. And all she knows to do is to go to this judge because he's the only one that can give her the justice that she deserves. So she goes, she gets turned down, she goes back the next day, he sends her away, she goes back the next day, he sends her away, she goes back on day 4, he sends her home, she comes back on day 5 and presents her case, makes her plea, petitions him for justice, he sends her home again. And finally the judge, just out of exhaustion, says, this woman is wearing me out, she's going to give me a black eye, literally, so he gives her justice, what she deserved all along, just to get her off his back. And God says, look, if an unrighteous judge will give to a widow, an insignificant widow who had no status in that culture, if an unrighteous judge will give her justice, how much more will your Father in heaven? You are his elect. You're not like the widow, insignificant, no status. You are the chosen ones of God. And he's not like the unrighteous judge. He is a righteous Father. How much more will he give you what you seek from him? And Jesus said the whole point of that parable, as explained in verse 3, the parable of the persistent widow, the whole point of us was to show that we should always pray and not give up. So Bill's word is exactly right on point. We need to keep praying. Pray for ourselves, pray for our enemies, and pray for this land. All right, thank you for the call, Bill. That's a very, very good call. Now, I want to mention one thing as we head into this next break. I've got a column up at rightlyconcerned.com, and the title of the column is, Has Russell Moore Been Scared Straight? I came across this interview that Russell Moore did with the Huffington Post. Remember, Russell Moore is the spokesman for the Southern Baptist Convention on Ethics and Public Policy. And he has been making comments in public, very distressing, really kind of disturbing comments, saying that same-sex marriage is inevitable. There's nothing we can do to stop it. The culture war is over. We've lost. We can never hope to have a moral majority again in this land. Those days are over. We have to accept defeat. We have to realize that this tide of sexual immorality is inevitable, and there's not a thing we can do to stop it. And the best thing we're going to be able to hope for is to fight for some crumbs of religious liberty. That's the best we can do, is to hope that somehow, some way, the government will just leave us alone so we can have some little shards and shreds of religious liberty left. Those are the signals that he has been sending. Now, and he attacked Conservative Talk Radio. I think, frankly, he was going after me. Process of elimination. I think he was listening to this program when he said, hey, if all I knew about Christianity is what I heard on Christian Talk Radio, I'd hate Christianity too. He took a broadside sweep. He won't say who it was he was listening to, so we don't know. So in other words, it still stands as a broadside allegation, a broadside accusation of all of Christian Talk Radio, that Christian Talk Radio is making people hate Christianity. Now, he's never apologized for that, and he's never told, despite being asked, he's never told us who it is that offended him so greatly and whom he so harshly judged. This is Russell Moore after saying, hey, Christians shouldn't judge. It's wrong to judge. The problem here is all this condemning spirit. Well, that's exactly what he was doing, judging harshly and condemning. But at any rate, I think the message has gotten through to him. I believe, I think the Southern Baptist Convention is made of sterner stuff. I think the pastors and the leaders in that convention, I know many Southern Baptist pastors. I know they've got steel in their spines. Now, there's no squish in them. There's no wavering on these important social issues. And they're cut out of a bolder bolt of cloth than Russell Moore. And I think they have been communicating their concerns to the board of the Ethics and Religious Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention. Because Russell Moore, in this interview with the Huffington Post, he retracted virtually everything he's ever said. He said, no, the war is not over. We got to keep fighting. Same-sex marriage, the battle over marriage is worth fighting. Completely different tone.